Good morning, everyone. Yeah. Good morning. Oh, yeah. So here we are once again, here live on the Painfully Honest Tech channel, where today we are going to talk about the WWDC event that happened. Um, y- yeah, it happened. That much is for sure. For those of you who were expecting hardware releases, sorry. And for those of you who were predicting hardware resources, um, anything else to shave? Because I, hey, I don't really care. I could be on, be right, be wrong. It doesn't matter. I wasted 2 hours of my life watching this event. So, so there is that. Wasted 2 hours of my life watching this event. Um, I mean, it's not that there wasn't anything worth checking out. To those of you who are here live, thank you for being here. I see Orbit, I see David, and I see James, and Ruben, and Stephanie, Deepak, Anthony, Khalil, everybody's here for the live stuff. If you're not subscribed to the Painfully Honest Tech channel, I don't know why you're not, but you should be, because then you'll know when I go live to talk about things like this event. And in the interest of the folks who are going to watch this later, let's just do a quick rundown of the things that we did get in today's event. Spoiler alert, it was all software. So iOS 15, uh, we get spatial audio for FaceTime. Yay. So it sounds like the person is like to your left or your right, I guess. Voice isolation, which if you're familiar with if anybody has a RTX graphics card and you can do that RTX voice thing, then it's basically the same thing. It just blocks out everything but your voice. It sounds a little weird, but it's better than, tons of noise. I could kind of use it right now. Then I could keep my air conditioner on. In fact, well, I have RTX voice. Uh, but I don't use it because it sounds weird. Um, and then wide spectrum something or other. In video mode for FaceTime, we get a grid view instead of like a staggered thing, I guess. We get portrait mode, which I'm glad they didn't make too much of a big deal about this portrait mode thing, because anybody who has used like Skype or Zoom or anything else knows that portrait mode, background replacement, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff has been something that you could do for quite a while. So yeah, and so then the most interesting thing about FaceTime here is that we've got share play, where you can listen to music or you can watch movies or TV shows or whatever. You can sort of share your screen and do things in groups. And so I guess that's pretty cool. And app developers like Disney Plus and HBO Max and others are bringing that to the table so that you can use that feature. And you could even, if you're watching something, you could cast it to your Apple TV and still have it on your phone or whatever. So yeah, they announced some things about messages. You can share messages now. You can get your notifications in a summary. I don't know. I took notes on this, but like I have to admit, I'm not gonna lie. Um, I've I made the mistake of watching on my Apple TV, which meant that I was sitting in my comfy TV watching chair, and I fell asleep about 5 times. So it's quite possible that I missed some stuff. But they've got this focus slash do not disturb feature now that you can use. And the focus do not disturb feature is, I mean, there have been apps for that forever. So now it's built into the operating system. Um, and then I guess you can search for photos in Spotlight as well. So the AirPods AirPods now have ambient noise reduction and conversation boost for people who are a little harder of hearing, which is something that AirPods have been able to do for quite a while anyway. But now they can. Now Apple's like saying that they can do it. They Siri can announce your notifications, spatial audio on all devices, spatial Spatial music is available on Apple Music starting today with such amazing artists like Ariana Grande and somebody else I never heard of. And I'm sure it's going to be awesome. So when spatial audio comes to like Boston's second record, or first record even, or Boston's greatest hits, then I will enjoy it. But until then, I don't know. iPad OS got widgets on the rest of the screen. You can not just have widgets on the side, you can have widgets on the rest of the screen. So that's exciting. So now there's an app library. So basically, they took all the features that they didn't put into iPad OS last year, but they did put into iOS, and they put them into iPad OS. But the one thing that I like about app library is it's going to be like permanently in the dock, so you can always get to your library. So that's a good thing. Multitasking is different now, which is great because I've never been able to use multitasking. I've never been able to use multitasking at all in iPad. Like right now, my Twitter and my mail apps are like side by side, and I can't figure out how to get them separated. That's how much I know about how to use multitasking and like shared screen on the iPad. Let's see. It's got a little menu thing where you can select things, and then you can like. So it's much more functional than I think it was before. One of the things that they announced that I thought was going to be a lot really helpful to me. What really was is the quick note feature where you can just like pull a note out of the side of the corner of the screen and start typing no matter what app you're in. You can tag things in apps in notes now. You can do a lot of different things. That's going to make the notes app a lot more useful. And there's always a time when I'm watching something or reading something or something like that, and I want to have a note and I don't want to go to the notes app. I want to stay where I am. So I think that's going to be good. You just have to swipe up from the bottom right-hand corner, it looks like, and that'll get you there. Let's see, what else? You can now build apps on the iPad with Swift. I guess they have like something that'll teach you to build apps. You cannot use Xcode on the iPad. You can. And here's the big thing about the iPad. This is the thing that we need to talk about the most. The fact that everybody was waiting to hear, okay, they put the iPad out there with the M1 chip in it. They made it as powerful as all of the other Macs out there. And so everyone was hoping that iPad OS would have the ability to get at least some desktop-only programs over from the Mac. Like for me, Final Cut and Logic Pro, and those are ones that I've heard most people mention a lot. And then, oh yeah, Ruben's asking about always on display. Man, I don't think Apple's ever going to give us an always on display. That's just the way it is. But we didn't get anything. We got no apps. We got no apps. We got no support for what they didn't even announce that they were enabling the iPads to be able to use more than 5 gigabytes of the RAM. And if you're not familiar, the iPads now have 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM available, and you can purchase 16 or it comes with 8. But app developers are only able to access 5 gigabytes of app or of RAM, period. So there was all this hope that they'd be able to get a hold of more. Maybe they are. Maybe that's something that will be talked about later on. And yeah, so we got nothing. Which for anybody who bought the 12.9-inch iPad or the 11-inch iPad Pro, for that matter, I feel sorry for you because you bought something that has no way, at least for the next year, of reaching anywhere near its full potential. And that sucks. That sucks big time. Okay. Universal. Somebody was mentioning Universal like the universal control. In Mac OS, they showed that you could like put your iPad down beside your Mac, and then like the cursor would move over, and you could control your iPad with the trackpad and do all kinds of different things. That is going to be a very cool feature, and I think it's going to eliminate the need for like secondary displays for a lot of people who want to have a secondary display but don't want to have two displays if they have an iMac or something like that. And it's just going to be overall useful to have. I'm interested in seeing how it works. I mean, they've got content, and they were calling that continuity from one thing to the next. They announced something called digital legacy, and this is something that I've always been really curious about. And I know it's a problem because I know people who have encountered it with social media and things like that. Apple has now allowed you to designate other people in your family or other people in your circle of life to be able to access your password protected stuff, Apple devices, et cetera, if you die or become incapacitated in some way. And this is, to me, it's kind of surprising that this hasn't been a thing already. I mean, I've heard horror stories of people not being able to get into their loved ones' iPads or their iOS iCloud accounts or whatever, and they're missing or they're whatever. So anyway, it is very morbid, Stephanie. True, but I mean, if people's lives are mostly digital at this point, which they are, then it kind of makes sense to be able to designate someone as like the executor of your digital life. So to me, that's good. That's a good thing. iCloud has become more, they talked a lot about privacy. They renamed Big Sur to macOS Monterey. But they only changed like two things. Now you have shortcuts for Mac, which I don't know about you guys, but I have tried to use shortcuts on iOS and iPadOS, and I cannot figure it out. I've watched Christopher Lawley's videos on shortcuts. I've watched all kinds of videos, and it's like coding. It's like coding, and I am terrible at it all, so I just don't understand. And the focus thing, I talked about that a little bit there at the beginning, where they've given you this focus feature now where you can take certain things and say, like, I only want to be able to like be aware of these things when I'm working on this or, whatever. So it's going to be a pretty cool, change. That, I mean, there are cool things that they're doing, right? But overall, I mean, Safari now has tabs. I don't know. It's overall a very cool thing. However, I think that we all have to admit, or if you disagree with me, you can say so in the chat. But overall, this was 2 hours of my life that I will never get back. I'm glad to hear about the new features, but of course, the average person, the person who's not like attending WWDC because they are in fact a developer, the average person who sits down to watch a WWDC keynote speech is interested in what's going to happen with the software, but not really we want the hardware. We want the good stuff, right? And I noticed that people are calling out our friend John Prosser in the chat, saying that he his accuracy level is dipped below 50%. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to a lot of what he was prognosticating, but we got no hardware. We got no hardware whatsoever. We didn't get a 16-inch MacBook Pro. We didn't get a 14-inch MacBook Pro. We didn't get a bigger iMac. We didn't get some kind of Mac Mini Pro. We didn't get nothing. We got nothing, and we're going to have to like it. That's just the way it is. I don't know if Apple had planned it that way forever, or if Apple had is suffering from the same silicon. God, never going to get that right. The same problem that a lot of the industry is having right now with being able to access all the stuff. And as Thomas says here, all the leakers were wrong. Can this finally be the last nail in the coffin for leakers? I mean, honestly, how frustrating is it to like inundate yourself with all of this leaker bullcrap? um, all of this leaker bullcrap, and then none of it happens. If you're somebody who pays attention to the leakers, you've spent hours of your life leading up to this event, listening to these people tell you how right they're going to be and all that other stuff, and then nothing. So can this be the end of leakers? Can we all agree that leakers are not going to happen anymore? Because it's just frustrating. It's not content to begin with. It's just a bunch of people talking, and if they're not going to be right, if they're not going to be accurate, if it's not even going to be close, then why? Super sticker from Rainier. Thank you. €10. And I love it. I can't see the actual sticker, so I just get descriptions of the stickers. Pair character bowing down saying thank you. Thank you, Rainier. Most appreciated. Most appreciated. The thing is, like, where'd it go? Where'd it go? That the chat's coming in so fast I can't keep up. Somebody said, and I just missed it, that that leakers are going to go extinct. And the sad part is, leakers are not going to go extinct. That's the sad part, is that starting, a week from now, more people are going to, there's going to be more stuff. There's going to be a leak about, there's going to be an event in October. And then, there'll be a date that everybody says. And then from that date, there'll be, there's going to be, a bajillion new pieces of hardware. And it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. And it's going to look like a carousel. And it's going to be, here's my render of it that I made with all this information that I have, and blah, blah, blah. But it's not, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. It did not happen. And so therefore, yeah. Bill wants to know, where is this Apple lossless music? They didn't mention Apple lossless, and they only briefly mentioned spatial audio as a feature. And so I'm going to imagine that the lossless audio stuff, like the full, I guess there was an update to that gives us spatial audio on more stuff now. I think spatial audio stuff had already been available in Apple Music, but I'm guessing it won't be full-fledged, all that stuff, until iOS 15 comes out. That's just my guess. I could be wrong. You notice how I say I could be wrong? I'm just guessing. But my educated opinion is that iOS 15 might be when we see the full fat everything coming out. So whenever we get like some kind of beta version, then we'll have to see. Yeah, Tim wants the leakers to go extinct. That much is for sure. And if this barrage of misinformation is Apple's way of going on the offensive against people who are leaking, then kudos to Apple, because there's nothing like watching dozens and dozens of people who have who only have as much credibility as they tell you that they have, being absolutely wrong about everything. So super chat from Rainier. Keynote was just lost time, not because of the wrong leaks, but from software developers' point of view. Yeah, I mean the stuff that was good in there. There's lots of good stuff in the software, right? But it's not super exciting. And I think everybody was looking for, like I said it last week, that WWDC was going to have to like be off the charts good to live up to the expectations that a lot of people had for WWDC. And unfortunately, it didn't pay off in any of the ways that people felt like it had to pay off in order to in order to satisfy people's needs. I mean, the iPad OS thing is a big dud because, well, I mean, why buy the new iPad if it's not going to do anything more than the old iPad, right? You can buy the old iPad for half that price, right? So uh, Keith Ron asks, so wait, John Prosser gets iMac, AirPods Max, and more right, so now we don't need leakers? No, we don't need leakers. When did we ever need leakers? What happens when Mac Mini comes as promised at an actual event for products? Um, have you seen that Mac Mini? I mean, again, I don't claim to know anything. I don't claim to have any kind of fancy connections or anything like that. All I'm saying is, yeah, okay. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I mean, you live and die by your mouth when you put these things out there, right? So I mean, you take risks when you do this, and when those risks don't pay off, then you are the goat for the day. Maybe turn around next time you're the hero, but you're either the hero or the goat. You don't get to be halfway in between when you stick your neck out there like this. Hero, goat. That's all you can be. So, Black Kraken, $5 super chat. Thank you. Why are people so mad at Apple for not showing what was rumored by leakers? This was a developers conference and not a hardware conference. Well, I don't want to give the impression that I'm mad because leakers said stuff was going to happen that didn't happen. I didn't think it was going to happen because they said it in the first place. In fact, I don't really pay attention to them at all. However, there were things that there were holes that need to be filled, right? And there has been hardware announced at WWDC more than 50% of the time over the last like 10 years. I don't remember exactly what the number is. Andrew Edwards put out a tweet the other day saying, here's how many times they've announced hardware at WWDC in recent history. So there has been hardware. So it's not unreasonable to expect for there to be hardware at WWDC, right? So it wasn't necessarily that the leakers were talking about anything, but iPadOS needed to be fixed, and it wasn't. And that makes the new iPad a completely pointless device. And there are a lot of people going to be showing up at Best Buy tomorrow or getting their RMAs from Apple, and sending those things back, because why bother? You can't use the power that machine has, so why? And then we're waiting on the professional level machines. We're waiting on the stuff that is more powerful, that hopefully has more support for more external hardware. Having only one USB bus is really, really limiting if you're trying to run multiple pieces of hardware at the same time. So people wanted to see, a pro level MacBook. People wanted to see maybe a pro level iMac or a pro level Mac Mini or something like that. People wanted to see those things because at this point, here's my situation. I've used the M1 Max, and I tried to go over to the M1 Max for my whole setup. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it. Well, I could have done it, but I would have had to have gotten rid of stuff and changed my whole workflow and done all kinds of stuff that I don't want to have to do. I want to be able to swap a new computer in for the one that's outgoing and not have to figure out, well, oh geez, I can only run one more monitor, or oh geez, I can only do this, that, or the other thing. And all the software and hardware support has not yet totally caught up. So people wanted to see in this 2-year window that they've given themselves. We're 1 year into the 2-year window, and we've got half of the devices. We've got the consumer level devices. And whenever you talk, as somebody who's a professional who uses Macs for their work, whenever you talk about the M1 Macs and how they're not quite made for that work, then everybody's like, oh, well, you can't, but then it's not made for you, me. Yes, it's not. And I'm waiting on what is, and it didn't come. And that's what people were hoping to get, right? So at the end of the day, we wanted to see at least something, as in like throw us a bone, Apple, just like, one tiny. I would, if the Mac Mini would have come out and looked like looked like that thing that was rendered, I would have been happy, because then I could have gotten a Mac Mini that was a little bit more powerful than what I can get now, and I could go back to using Macs. But right now, I'm on PC, and I said it on Twitter today. I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of like Groundhog Day. Either Tim Cook is going to pop his head out and see his shadow, and we're going to get some we're going to get some new hardware that professionals can use, or he won't see his shadow and we'll get 6 months more of nothing. And unfortunately, from the hardware side, we're getting maybe not 6 months, but you know what? We're months and months and months are going to go by with nothing. So I just, that's where I was coming from. That's what I was waiting for. And to add insult to injury, this was twice as long as any of these sort of like staged filmed events that Apple has had. Apple's events have been like 50 minutes, an hour, maybe an hour and 5 minutes or something like that. This was a full 2 hours, after which I felt like I needed a nap because it was just exhausting. So I don't know. Orbit says maybe they should start with a new Apple Pencil that will recharge if you let the battery die. Now, I will say this. So here's my Apple Pencil. I forgot that I had 2 Apple Pencils. One Apple Pencil that actually I bought it and like a week later accidentally put it through the washing machine. And then another Apple Pencil that still worked. And we were moving furniture around and found this Apple Pencil, which hadn't been charged for a long time, but it works. Okay. So yeah, this Apple Pencil works, although it is a known issue that for the Apple Pencil 2, if you let it die, then it may not recharge. So yeah. Hugo says the keynote looked again more like a stockholder keynote than a developer keynote. I don't know. I mean, in some ways maybe, but it was pretty dry and software focused. I mean, I've never been to a developer conference that wasn't also a public event, so I don't know. I don't know. It's just really Alonzo took a nap. Alonzo, I'm sorry, I took a nap. I feel bad, but I did fall asleep like 4 or 5 times. And you know that maybe it's like old man fall asleep, where like you're sitting in front of the TV and you just start to drift off, and the next thing you know, you're waking up. You didn't know you were falling asleep. It was that kind of falling asleep. Genosis says those life stories during the health segment. I must have been asleep during that portion, or I was tweeting, because after a certain point, I just wasn't listening anymore. Deepak is glad he just got a maxed out M1 MacBook Pro. I don't doubt, again, like I said, could I do all my stuff with the M1 MacBooks or, any of the M1 things except for the iPad? Yes, I most definitely could. And the issue is that they're not made for heavy lifting. And even if my workload would 90% of the time not hit that sort of threshold, they're also hobbled in their form factor. The MacBooks are small, and then the port selection is not great. So it's just kind of unfortunate. Simon says, all I hear is moan, moan, moan. Then like take your fingers out of your ears, you might actually be able to hear words. Does lossless audio playback on Apple TV 4K Apple Music app? It should. Yes, it does. It does. But it depends on how you're using. It depends on where the sound is going to. So if you're using your Apple TV 4K and using HomePods as your surround sound system, then no, because the HomePods can't do lossless audio yet. But if you're using a receiver and separate speakers and that kind of stuff, then yes. And again, I haven't made the video about it yet. I still have several videos to make about lossless audio and in general, like lossless audio versus spatial audio, and should you even care about lossless audio, and can you even hear the difference between lossless audio and regular audio and all that kind of stuff. So I have several videos that I still want to make, but a lot of times the equipment that you have and the ability that the experience that you have listening for what the differences might be between a lossy file and a lossless file often dictate whether or not you can hear the difference. But yeah, Apple TV 4K, to answer your question succinctly, is capable of playing back lossless audio. HomePods are not. No AirPods whatsoever can, nor will they ever be able to play back lossless audio. I want to stress that, because even in the video that I made the other day, that was very I thought very, very simple to understand and direct about what was going to be able to play lossless audio, people were still like, can I listen to lossless audio through Bluetooth? No. Will I ever be able to listen to lossless audio through Bluetooth? No. Not unless Bluetooth changes the way that it handles audio, the capabilities that it has in terms of its bandwidth. Bluetooth will never carry a lossless audio file in its lossless form to your ears. Okay? Now, can you select lossless audio? Like when Apple Music has lossless audio as an option, right? When Apple Music has the lossless option, if you go into your Apple Music app and you select lossless audio, it will play back the lossless audio file into your Bluetooth headphones, but it will be downsampled, converted down to a format and a size that your Bluetooth headphones can decode. Pratik is correct here. Future Bluetooth standards might be able to do it. Correct. The question is, will current Bluetooth headphones be able to use the future Bluetooth standard? So, I don't know if that's the answer to that. It's possible. I know that Bluetooth 6 gets a lot closer, but Bluetooth 6 isn't really like in heavy usage. It's not really a thing yet. Orbit says, Luke Miani just seemed happy that iPad OS has the hello screen from the iMac. Luke Miani has a vested interest in being happy about whatever Apple does. I don't know him. I'm not throwing shade. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're a look on the brighter side kind of person, that's great. I don't know Luke Miani. He seems like a very nice guy. So I'm glad he found something to be excited about. The waiting game continues. Yes. Spatial audio will only work on M1 Max. I don't think so. They just said that spatial audio was coming to spatial audio was going to come to every, let me see what my note says. AirPods, spatial audio on all devices. That's what it says. So, and Apple Music will have at least more spatial audio stuff starting today. That's the note that I have on spatial audio. So M1 power in the new iPads, it's only for the battery life. I mean, I could only imagine that it's like worse for the battery life. I've heard that the battery life on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is not all that great, and it has everything to do with the mini LED screen. And I would assume that running a more powerful chip in there is going to be a problem for battery life on those machines. But I don't know. I haven't seen any tests or anything like that. So wait, yes, M1 Max only for spatial audio. Where are you getting this information? I'm curious. Because this is the first time anybody's said this that I've heard. I heard spatial audio was only coming to M1 devices. I No, I don't think so. I mean, Apple Music carries spatial audio, and Apple Music is everywhere. I didn't hear that. I mean, maybe that was one of the times that I was asleep, but I mean, what I've heard up to this point is that we would be able to check out spatial audio on Apple Music starting today. Michael says that the M1 is very efficient, but I don't know the data. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how efficient it is compared to. I don't know how efficient it is compared to the A series chips that that were in the machines before that. Hold on a second. Apple's spatial audio will not work on Intel-based Macs, only for models with the M1 chip. What? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, so will it work on an iPhone? Because that's where 90% of everybody listens to their music, right? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't know. For videos. Oh, for videos. Okay, spatial audio for videos. That makes sense. Yeah, because but Nerd King, if we're talking about video, like the video spatial audio, I could see how that's a possibility, right? But I mean, up until you guys in the chat, like spatial audio for music has been advertised as for everything. For music. Spatial audio is related to the M1 hardware. Getting confused. Again, I think there's a difference between music and video. So the spatial audio for video in FaceTime is what it seems like maybe makes more sense. Because spatial audio for music, I've been paying attention. I believe that it's available on all devices that, all Apple devices that use. All right, somebody's going to have to look this up and put a link in the chat, because I do not think this is correct. So if somebody can get a link that says video, audio, anything, then put it in the chat and I'll pull it up and we'll look at it. So otherwise they just contradicted themselves entirely on the music portion of spatial audio. Apple really needs to separate these two functions. Are you talking about the video, spatial audio versus the? Yeah. I mean, you can watch. See, here's the reason why I know this. Spatial audio is available on AirPods Max and AirPods Pro with an Apple TV with anything that has been converted to the spatial audio um, codec or whatever it is they use to do it. So this must be for video only and only for these video calls, and it must be because the calls it needs to have the M1 chip to be able to do that kind of computation. All they said was spatial audio coming to all M1 Macs. Yeah, I don't know. We need spatial audio for the FaceTime video. I could see, but if it's all spatial audio, then it A goes against what's already possible, and B goes against what they've said the whole time. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere close. No, because any device that runs iOS 14 will get spatial audio. Okay, getting somewhere. Okay, Genosis has found the link. Can I select the link? Come on, let me select the link. Gosh darn it. Hold on, let me see if I can. I don't have the freaking chat up. So Apple Music announces spatial audio and lossless audio. Okay. Genosis can, like, if you're a mod, you can paste a note, but unfortunately in Restream, I can't like click the link. Okay, so this is from May 17th. Apple today announced Apple Music bringing industry-leading quality sound, blah, 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 blah. Spatial audio gives artists the blah, 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 blah. Okay. It says here, spatial audio with Dolby support for Dolby Atmos and lossless audio will be available to Apple Music subscribers at no additional cost. Thousands of tracks will be available in spatial audio with Dolby Atmos at launch, with more added regularly. I don't see anything that says anything about the M1 chip as I scan through here. So it has to be about that FaceTime thing. It has to be about that FaceTime spatial audio. Because I mean, I've been reporting about this lossless audio, spatial audio thing. I've listened to spatial audio, like watching The Mandalorian. I know that spatial audio, when it comes to Apple Music and other stuff, is available to anyone who has the proper updates for the hardware that they're using. Okay, Jimmy has found us some information. Or he's trying to clarify. Spatial audio for video, M1 Max, and Apple TV. Spatial audio for music, all devices. I know that I can use spatial audio on the Apple TV. I've done it. So there's some kind of confusion here. Where I don't know what it is. Dolby Atmos is coming for all. Has to be enabled in the settings. Yeah, you have to go into the settings of your Apple Music app to enable lossless audio as well. You have to go in and select it. Yeah, this M1 requirement is new to me. I'm not saying that they didn't say it about something, because that's quite possible. But, but from everything that I know, the spatial audio that we knew of today before they announced spatial audio for FaceTime was available for all Apple devices. Monterey Spatial. Okay. Okay. macOS Monterey. Let me pull it in here. And okay. Spatial audio. Individual voices sound like they are coming from the direction in which each person is positioned on your screen, helping conversations flow more naturally. So AirPods, dynamic head tracking. Okay. Let's find this footnote. Where's the footnote? Footnote number 2, available on Mac models 2018 and later. Okay, that's fine. That's not M1 only, because M1 is 2020 onward. And so going back up to what we were talking about, this is spatial audio as it relates to FaceTime, not spatial audio as it relates to all spatial audio. Okay? Does that make sense? Or has this clarified anything? Thank you to Nelson for pointing that out. Spatial audio, which only supports for tvOS and M1 Max, is for videos when pairing to an air. No, because I've used it. I've used it. Spatial audio is available for video and audio through the Apple TV. I've used it, so we're still not totally clear on this. But as I look at this right here and I read the footnote that's attached to it, it is talking about voices sound like they are coming from the direction in which each person is positioned on your screen. That is specifically talking about spatial audio in FaceTime. That's not talking about spatial audio in music or streamed video or anything like that. That's talking only about spatial audio in FaceTime. Yeah. So when do we get iOS 15? Well, they're announcing they're putting out developer betas soon. I can't remember exactly when they said. And so, yeah, if you're in the developer program, anybody can be in the developer program if you want to pay money. I think it's $100 to get into the developer program. Otherwise, they'll have public betas later on. They literally said spatial audio coming to tvOS and M1. I mean, I can only read what they say here because I don't have a direct quote from the event, but I can I can only read that. Then what Apple shows to play on through my? Okay, I don't know. Can you tell me where you're finding this? Like, just tell me and I'll look it up because I'm not finding it. So Michael's finding some things in the beta that they didn't mention. So spatial audio has been available on some stuff already. I know some people who have found spatial audio. And so they've made more spatial audio available. They specifically mentioned Ariana Grande and somebody else. Okay. Okay. Right. Mac OS to get more done, and then okay. All new ways to stay connected. FaceTime now includes a suite of audio and video features that make calls feel more natural and lifelike with spatial audio voices of space. Okay. And wide spectrum allows the sound in the area to come through so participants can hear everything. Portrait mode taps the neural engine in the M1 chip to blur the user's grid view. Okay. They mentioned M1 Max for spatial audio, along with being able to use HomePods with the Apple TV and some intelligent stuff going on as far as volume and location. Yes. They announced that you can now use the HomePod Mini for surround sound, just like you can with the old defunct HomePod, right? And so that's not a new feature. That's just been brought to the HomePods Mini. And as I understand it, the spatial audio thing that requires the M1 chip, it has everything to do with spatial audio and FaceTime. And not spatial audio overall. Should you get an upgrade? So Jimmy asks, should I get an upgrade to get lossless audio? An upgrade of what? What would you want to upgrade? Yeah, for FaceTime spatial audio. Okay. So Textivo, we just read that it will work on 2018 Max and up. That is not only M1. So reading. So Nelson says spatial audio with dynamic head tracking. Listeners with AirPods Pro and AirPods Max can now get even more immersive experience Dolby Atmos music with Apple's head tracking. Yeah, that's the spatial audio that's being added to. That's the spatial audio that's being added to Apple Music and to the video that you can get through the Apple TV. Jimmy, are you asking if you need to get an iOS update? Well, I think so. Yeah, I think you need to be on iOS 15 or 14. So, and you do need an Apple Music subscription. Let's be clear about that. Do need an Apple Music subscription. TechNerd says Mac OS 14 has a requirement for spatial audio as well. Yeah, but again, do we know which spatial audio you're talking about? Spatial audio. So this is what Apple's not been super clear about. Spatial audio and the Dolby Atmos thing, when it comes to the music and the video that you'll be listening to either through your Apple devices or through your Apple TV, the spatial audio and the Dolby Atmos are kind of like the same thing. Okay, they're kind of mixed together, and Apple hasn't been specific about how that is, but that's what they're talking about. They're both the same thing, even though they keep saying spatial audio and Dolby Atmos. They're not two different things. Apple's bringing out spatial audio, Dolby Atmos, whatever mixture that is, and then they're also bringing lossless audio to Apple Music. Genosis says spatial audio will work with Intel processors. What won't work is the portrait mode separation that needs the neural engine. Okay, yeah, that's what this right here. Let me get my face out. You lost my audio, huh? I'm back though, right? That's weird. I don't know why that would happen. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. It must have gone out when I like got rid of my. Yeah. Oh, I see what I need to do. I need to make this full screen. Okay, my bad. I hit the wrong button. WWDC felt like an Android feature event from half a decade ago. When are we going to stop hearing this? When are we going to? So tell me what computer runs Android. Tell me what speakers Android has. Tell me like what did we watch OS? Did we have watch OS features that are somehow mimicking Android watch features? Wait, no, there are no Android watches anymore. This is the kind of lazy, boring comment that this is a lazy, boring comment, Matt. I mean, how many years have we heard people just like, oh, well, they're just stealing from Android? So what? Samsung stole from Apple. So Rainier, thank you again for the €5 super chat. I have to say goodnight. Get your beauty sleep. Okay. Oh, going to Greece. It's nighttime already. Thank you, man. Thank you. Have a good rest of the night and have a good trip to Greece. Yeah, and everyone does copy everyone. You're absolutely right. There's where I know there's Wear OS, but I mean, when was the last time a Wear OS device that anyone bought come out into the world? Yeah. Nerd King says Google Nest is Android portable. Facebook. Yes. Okay. Fine. there are speakers that use Android. I think you understood what I meant. 5 a.m. in Taiwan. Man, Jimmy, what are you doing? Go to sleep. Spatial audio, I mean, here's the thing. We had when Andrew Edwards was on the show a couple of weeks ago, we had this talk when they first announced spatial audio. Spatial audio is a gimmick in and of itself, yes. The thing about spatial audio is it's something additional, something added to the music, or I'm only going to talk about music because I don't know enough about how film is done or video or television is done to speak for television. When the music leaves the recording studio and goes to get mastered and then gets distributed, that music sounds exactly like what the artist and the people who are working on the record want it to sound like, right? So when you take that audio and make it do something different, then it's not what the artist intended anymore. And eUpload says, isn't spatial audio improved stereo? There is no such thing as improved stereo. The word stereo means two. So you can't improve it unless you get better speakers. They're using spatial audio. They're using algorithms and digital signal processing to enhance the sound field, but it is not what the artist intended the music to sound like. So, as TechNerd says, it's kind of like using vivid mode on your TV. You know, if you want to watch on TV and see a film that's represented as close as the filmmaker wanted to see, right? Then instead of using vivid mode, you would use like cinema mode or whatever it is that has, like, some TVs have different settings. Spatial audio in general requires Dolby Atmos first. Yes, I think that's what I was saying before. I don't know exactly how, but I do believe that spatial audio is somehow built on the platform of Dolby Atmos. Spatial audio will be fun. Okay, people listen to spatial audio. Like if you took one person and you played them a spatial audio version of a song and then a lossless audio version of a song, they would be more impressed with the spatial audio version, or at least the spatial audio version would be more recognizably different than the lossless audio version. The lossless audio version, however, is the truest representation of the artist's intent as you can possibly get in a digital form, right? So no ones and zeros have been altered in a lossless audio file. So it's, in some ways, it's just like quadraphonic sound. It's like, there are all those different Dolby modes that you can get on your Dolby, like on your AV receiver. It's the same thing. They're taking the audio and they're making it do different things. And that might be fun, but it's not representative of the artist's intent. And so therefore, to me, that is like a lesser than experience, no matter how cool it sounds. Yeah. As Nerd King says, Apple is manipulating the Dolby encoding to expand the experience. Yes. It's very similar to, like, if you've listened to Sony's 360 sound, then it's very similar to that. Windows has their own version of spatial audio that they actually call spatial audio as well. None of it sounds good to me. All of it sounds like they took the file and did something to it to make it sound different. And I've had this argument about, like, fake surround sound in gaming headsets as well. Like it's not well positional. I like to call it positional audio. Positional audio in gaming has gotten a lot better than it used to be, and I think a lot of game developers are actually encoding positional audio into what they do, right? So in doing that, it's gotten better. However, um, however, it's not like having multi-directional sound from only two sound sources is always is always going to be a little bit artificial. Now, Pratik says it only sounds good in movies, and you want to know why that is. Film soundtracks, both the dialogue and the additional audio, as well as the music, are all recorded and mixed in 5.1 or 7.1. So you have all of those signals to process. And so when it goes into your receiver, or when you're sitting in the movie theater and you hear things coming from different speakers, it was made to sound that way. Those were intentional decisions by the people that were making the product. So Jimmy says, I think spatial audio is just something that makes the customers feel fresh. Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm a purist, man. I just believe that there's nothing to me. There is nothing better than having the experience of hearing something with more clarity, with more of the detail that was there when the music came out of the studio. That's a more valuable experience to me than some artificial manipulation of the sound. Now, not everyone has the equipment to hear that, and B, not everyone has the ears that know what to listen for. That's not to say you couldn't, but for me, like, I've spent many years mixing audio in the studio and listening, like critically listening to audio as a musician, so that I can identify what it is that I'm trying to hear, what I hear and what I don't hear. And so, like, sometimes, as Genosis says, sometimes there are like microsonic things that are happening that, and sometimes it's not even sound. Sometimes you're hearing space, the space that exists in between the things. Now, especially if you listen to a high quality representation of an orchestral performance that was recorded extremely well at a high bit rate, and then you will hear the room on good equipment. That's the whole thing. Like, there are many different ways to get a really exemplar listening experience that don't require very expensive gear. The one thing that is a constant, that is necessary to appreciate lossless audio and to appreciate good audio, is well-trained ears that understand how to listen for what they are trying to hear, what they want to hear, right? So there are so many variables, and I've talked about this. Like, if a recording was recorded on cheap mics in the 80s to ADAT tape that was only 16-bit, that only came out at 16-bit 44.1, if you upsample that to 24-bit 192, you're still taking something that didn't have as much information and upsampling it to something that it's hard to make it better than it really is. if that makes any sense. Jimmy asks, will it cost a lot more when recording spatial audio? I don't know. I don't. So whatever spatial audio is, whatever secret sauce Apple is using, even though it's based on Dolby Atmos, I don't know of any music recording studio that's going to retool their entire setup for Dolby Atmos music recording. So I don't think that spatial audio will become something that people try to create. So I think that I think there's entirely a possibility that this spatial audio thing will come and go, and it'll just be something we talk about, like quadraphonic sound, like super audio CDs, like, I mean, this like stereo music listening. We have two ears, we have two speakers. Our ears and our brain are what create the sense of space. So doing it artificially doesn't always work. So now, what are you talking about Foreigner recordings being bad? Foreigner recordings were really good. Now, you might not like them, but they were recorded in like some of the best studios on the planet to 2-inch tape with incredibly good musicians and very, very good equipment. So the recordings are good. Whether or not you like Foreigner is another thing. I've said many times that one of my favorite recordings to use to judge a new set of speakers or headphones, one of my favorite recordings to use is Boston's first record, the self-titled Boston. That is one of the best sounding records ever made on this planet. And it doesn't even really matter if you like Boston or not. If you know what you're trying to listen for, then you can use that record as a baseline for how to listen to other things. A lot of times listening to so I have a playlist, right? And what I try and do with a playlist is I try and establish a baseline by which I can judge the rest of what I hear. And then I can judge also what I'm hearing it through, right? As and the Nerd King has a good point here. The first CD was not good as it was not designed for digital. Well, part of the problem was when CDs came around, the process for digitizing music that had been previously analog had a long way to go to be as well developed and sort of standardized as it could have been. So by the time we hit the 90s, CDs were sounding better. By the time we hit the 2000s, CDs, that's when we get the loudness wars. But yeah, a lot of times, as Nerd King says, the pops and clicks that you're hearing, a lot of times what happened was, in order to get CDs out, they created the CD master off of either like a master acetate of a record or just a record. I mean, I have been in mastering studios where the guy had like a $12,000 turntable, right? And half of his workload was playing records into his digital setup to master them for digital audio. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of times that's the only source material that was available. So a lot of times the things that were digitized to be put onto CD were actually just records, and you tried to get it. You tried to get the playback as good as you could get it. Yeah. Genosis asks, which developer conference did you like more, WWDC or Google I/O? I didn't even watch Google I/O. So, I mean, generally, I watch WWDC for the possibility that there could be hardware. I'm not a developer. I can read Apple's press release and get the information that I need about what the software is going to do, but it's only going to matter to me until I have the software available to use. So WWDC is only important to me in the off chance that there's some hardware in the offing. Otherwise, I don't really care, or at least I don't care until I get to use the software. If that makes any sense. How do you? So Jimmy asks, how do you train yourself to be able to hear the quality of the sound? That's a really good question. I would start by trying to train yourself to hear each individual instrument. Try and hear each individual instrument and hear where they exist in what you're listening to. And once you're able to do that, like for me, some of the clues that I use to really listen to the quality of something is in softer music, I listen for a sense of air. Like if I can hear sound that's not there, then I like to use Norah Jones' first record as a tester for like softer stuff, more acoustic stuff that has more space to it, right? And I listen for breath, I listen for air, I listen for space. That's hard to that might not make any sense. When I'm listening to louder stuff, like the Boston record or like AC/DC, so AC/DC's records are incredibly well recorded as well, especially Back in Black, which was produced by Mutt Lange. I mean, that stuff sounds incredible. And rock music is all about mid-range. So if the guitars are really crunchy and yet still very distinct, then I know that I'm on the right track towards something that sounds really good. I listen to cymbal wash, like the decay of a cymbal. If I can hear cymbals decay, like there's the crash, but then you can still hear it reverberate even seconds afterwards. Then I that's another clue for me. It's hard to explain, and it's not necessarily like it's not necessarily try not to follow the beat, but like, so if you're listening to, okay, so rock music is probably the easiest thing to talk about. If you're listening to rock music, right? You can put a mental picture of what a band looks like in your head. The drummer is in the middle and the singer is in the middle. The guitar players and the bass players are off to the side, right? Usually, probably like 80% of the time, the drums will be reversed. So like instead of the toms going from right to left as you would see them if you're sitting at the drum kit, they go from left to right because that's the picture that you're seeing, right? And the singers, the lead vocal is going to be straight up the middle. The bass will usually be straight up the middle. And then like guitars will be panned to the sides. Keyboard, like, so you look at it as like sort of a I guess like a semicircle, half circle. And you can listen for the positionality of the sounds and then start listening for specific things. I mean, I got really good at doing this by listening to the Beatles. because there was so much to hear when listening to the Beatles that if you listened enough, you could start to hear, you could start to hear what they were doing, and you could start to hear where stuff existed, where it came in, where it left. I mean, there's weird things about Beatles recordings, like in the first vocal line of Eleanor Rigby. Now, the vocals in the chorus are double tracked. In Paul McCartney says Ella on one side. If you listen to the recording, you'll hear, instead of Eleanor Rigby one voice, you'll hear Eleanor Rigby. That'll drop out a second after it should have dropped out. And you just start listening for weird stuff like that. But yeah, you should be in a good recording with good equipment, you should be able to pinpoint everything. And if you're sitting in a room, like if you're sitting in the room with a hi-fi setup, right? So you got speakers on either side of you, you should be able to position the speakers in the room so that the speakers themselves, like, you cannot hear the speakers. You hear only the positionality of the sound. And if you can position your speakers in that way, then listen to music in that setting. It's a lot easier to start to be able to pick things out. And that's sort of like the arcane mystical art of audio, is when you start to know what you need to do in order to be able to do more of what you want to do. And I feel like I'm talking like a crazy person right now, and I hope but oh yeah, I didn't turn this off. Sorry. There I am. Yes, as AS says, the sweet spot is what you're looking for. And sometimes, like, I've had rooms where I had to pull the speakers like 3 or 4 feet out into the room before I hit the sweet spot. And if you look at pictures of people's stereo setups, you'll see that everything is like way out from the wall, and it's just really weird. A lot of that is because they walk around, they put the speakers in one position, they measure. Like right now, the 2 monitors that I have set up right here are equidistant from the cone of each speaker to my ears, and it, the base of the triangle. So if this is the triangle, then everything is equidistant. I think it was like 82 inches or something, something like that. And that's because, like, that way I'm always sitting in the sweet spot. Now, I'm not perfectly in the sweet spot when I'm sitting up at the desk like this, but if I lean back, then everything, like, the speakers are pointing toward my ears, and they're the same distance apart as they would be to my ear bones. So it's little tricks like that. So it's little tricks like that you learn along the way. A lot of this stuff I learned by reading forums and watching videos and, trial and error on my own. But when I was a kid, I was just obsessed with listening to music. And then when I got old enough to be able to afford stereo equipment, I was obsessed with getting stereo equipment. When I got my first student loans, the first thing that I bought after paying my fees was a pair of speakers. Literally, like, walked down from campus to the stereo store, bought a pair of speakers, and then went home. So I mean, that's been a big part of my existence. But I was obsessed with music, both because I wanted to perform it, but also because I was really, I don't know if music plays the same kind of role in the lives of young people now as it did then. I mean, there's so many other things that can draw people's attention. There's so many other ways for kids to occupy themselves that listening to music is one of many choices instead of one of a couple. It's like, well, you listen to music, you watch TV, you go outside and play, you know, you go to the movies. There wasn't a lot to do when I was a kid, and it's not quite the same. Like, the Atari 2600 wasn't a thing until I was like 6 or 7 years old, but by that time I was already like crazy about music. But anyway, it's an hour and a half, and I was only going to do like a half an hour. And I got to go pick my daughter up from school. So I'm going to have to jump out, folks. KG just got here again, missing everything again. But that's okay. Anyway, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out. We had a big crowd here, and I chased them away talking about music. So, yeah, KG, I appreciate it. The audio videos have been fun for me. They might not get, yes, Jimmy, this will be available at least until tomorrow, for rewatching. And even then, if you have the link, it'll just be unlisted. So yeah, I don't keep them listed for long because they mess with the analytics. Like the shorter videos versus an hour and a half worth of live streams, the way they do the analytics, it messes up how YouTube thinks I suck if I leave the live streams live. So I wish that wasn't the case, because this is like some of the better content. This is some of the stuff that I like the most when we're just having a conversation. But I'm probably going to cut down the first 15 minutes or so as like a video about the event, but the rest of it will be up until tomorrow. So anyway, folks, thanks once again for hanging out with me. Yeah, if you copy the link, you should be able to get back to it. So thanks, Jimmy. Genosis, Hugo, AS, KG, Jim, like Pratik, all you guys who have been here hanging out, much appreciated. The kings of nerds, the Nerd King and the Tech Nerd, or I don't know. There are all those guys here. Really appreciate it. You guys have been awesome. Once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL, Painfully Honest Tech, here on the WWDC day, talking about all things